Well, thank you all for being here today. My name is Lori Black. I'm the Associate Director of the Lowell Milken Center for Music of American Jewish Experience at the UCLA Herb Alpert School of Music. We are very glad to have you all here for an incredible opportunity to meet the artist. In this case, an individual who, to read his entire bio would take the majority of the evening, but suffice it to say, we have all heard his music at some point in our lives. So before we get to the main part of this evening, I do want to encourage all of you that are here because you love music of American Jewish Experience to please sign up for our mailing list. We encourage you to go to our website and sign up for the mailing list, and you will hear about all the interesting work that we are doing. We offer programming in the form of education, performance, and we have research going on throughout the year. And we just have amazing programs both at UCLA and throughout the greater Los Angeles community. So please do come out for our programs. The next program we have coming up is a klezmer workshop with Kurt Bjorling on December 7th. This is a virtual program and it is free to the public. We encourage you to bring your instruments and learn how to play klezmer in the traditional way. So please do join us for that. So our guest tonight, Charles Fox. So Charles was born and raised in New York City and graduated from the New York High School for the Music and Arts and continued his formal music education, composition studies with Nadia Boulanger in Paris, and he studied jazz theory with Lenny Tristano, electronic music with Vladimir Usichevsky at Columbia University. He began his career playing the piano, composing and arranging for such Latin legends as Ray Barretto, Joe Quijano, and Tito Puente, as well as writing theme music and arrangements for Skitch Henderson and the Tonight Show Orchestra. Charles has composed the music for hundreds of songs. Most of them have been recorded for records, motion picture, and TV. He has worked with and been recorded by Roberta Flack, Sarah Vaughan, Barry Manilow, Jim Croce. The list goes on and on. He has also written for the theater. Tonight, we're going to hear one of a work that has only seen a single performance, but a really beautiful work written about following the book The Chosen. He has also composed the musical scores for over 100 motion pictures and television films, including Barbarella, 9 to 5, Goodbye Columbus, and Foul Play. He is the recipient of a Grammy Award for Best Song of the Year for Killing Me Softly with a Song. And he's the recipient of 2 Emmy Awards for Love American Style. I'm very, very excited to have with us today Charles Fox. Thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Nice to be here. By the way, I see some friends there. Let me say hello. Mark Klingman, hi. Noreen, I see you. Juliana, thank you for your notes, Juliana. Anyway, maybe there are more people. Those are the ones I see.
Oh no, it's absolutely it's an absolute mandatory thing that we always say hi to friends and mishpacha here. So please, and if there are individuals who know Charles and want to say hi, but we're not seen in gallery view, please feel free to put those hellos in the chat as well. So many of us have grown up with hearing your music in a variety of ways, whether that's on TV or in the concert hall or in the theater, but it might not be the most widely known thing that you have. Your Jewish identity has always intersected with your artistry, and so before we jump into our first recording, I was wondering if you might just tell us a little bit about where that comes from. And then we'll go ahead and jump into the first project that we're looking at tonight.
Sure. Well, I come from New York, the Bronx. My mother was Israeli. She was a Sabra, and she came to this country when she was about 20. She was born about 2 years before Tel Aviv was born. And my father was from Poland. They were Orthodox. We had one artwork on our wall growing up in the Bronx. It was Theodor Herzl. It was a tapestry, and I passed that tapestry of the day of my life. And so I definitely came from a very, not only Orthodox family, but a very believing family, very Jewish family. And actually, I started playing piano when I was quite young, maybe 8 or 9. Maybe that's not quite young for some people to start much earlier. But I pretty soon started accompanying my father, who played a little mandolin. He played all these nice little Jewish tunes. And if I accompanied him, I'd find an extra quarter in my allowance. So I became professional early on. But I grew up hearing my father's mandolin as we were playing all these Jewish little songs. Sometimes we sing along. It's in my blood. It's definitely in my blood. Yeah.
Well, I think that's the perfect introduction to this clip from 100 Voices. So why don't we go ahead and watch it, then you can tell us a bit about what we just saw.
Like the pine trees lining the winding road, I got a name, I got a name. Like the singing bird and the croaking toad, I got a name, I got a name.
It was a personal journey.
And I carried with me like my daddy did.
I'm walking basically in the footsteps of my father.
That he kept
I can picture my dad running. I can picture my dad running.
wailing down the highway.
There's really nothing indicating that a Jew had lived in this town. And in fact, there were 8,000 Jews who lived there out of 10,000 people, so it's 80% Jewish. They were all centered in Treblinka.
Like the north wind whistling down the sky, I got a song. Oh, I got
And the only monument that I could find was at the end of a locked cemetery.
babies cry. I got a song.
There was a memorial to the Jews of Shidwavis who had died.
And I sing it clear.
I am going to try to help them to establish some kind of a little museum to the history of the Jews here. Nate Lamb asked me to write a piece based on the words of Pope John Paul II. These are the words that he inserted on a piece of paper into the wall, the Western Wall in Jerusalem. And they were very gentle words, but I thought the meaning behind them was very powerful. I need to have a journey with this piece. A prayer of what would not happen again. I have one movement I call Benediction Blessing because it was almost had to be a joyful experience, that this is going to lead to something in the future.
We sometimes have missed the point of why we were singing what we sing about. Is it for our people, or is it for others? And this mission has...
A really stunning clip. So can you tell us the genesis of that project and the genesis of that work?
Certainly. So first of all, it's a stunning film called 100 Voices, A Journey Home. And Danny Gold, a wonderful documentary filmmaker, filmed this. It was 100 cantors who came to Poland to bring cantorial music back to Poland. And they sang, they were, cantorial music was started in Poland. And it had been erased from the map there, obviously. So Nate Lamb brought this back, brought 100 cantors and several hundred people, And he asked me to write this piece based on the words of Pope John Paul. Pope John Paul wrote it, and he was the only pope, by the way, who actually visited the Western Wall. And he wrote these words in English as a prayer, and inserted them in the wall to beg forgiveness for what happened to the children of Abraham.
I don't know whether it's
And I saw this as very important, very powerful, but it's only in English, so I asked for it. By the way, this is the Polish National Opera Company on the stage at the Warsaw Opera House. We had, well, 100 voices plus 40 children plus 100-piece orchestra, so it was quite a production. It was a very moving experience. I was, first of all, standing on the stage not far from where my father was born, in that little town that was called my father used to say Shidlovice. I guess the Jews said it, but it's actually Shidwowiec. It took me a while to find the town because of mispronunciation. But we did go back a couple of times. We met with the mayor of the town. And it was a very moving experience to me personally, as you can imagine. Actually, for all of us who were there, and it was made into a very beautiful film. And what the director, Danny Gold, did is follow story of 5 cantors and myself, and within our individual stories. If anyone hasn't seen it, I know it's available. Do see it. It's a beautiful film. That was a short clip from the film. There's much more about it, about my participation. But
could you tell us what did it mean to, you go back and you're connecting with, your family's roots? Did it inspire? It clearly inspired you musically. So can you tell us a little bit more about, what was going on there? It somehow sounds both familiar, but also there's this really interesting and original orchestration. And then if you wouldn't mind telling us, just in case anyone wants to hear the full work, where might we find it? Is that possible?
On my website, for one. The website, Charles Fox Music, if anyone is interested, the complete work, because there's a lot of my works in there. So the music, of course, came before the trip. And the music was based on the words in Polish and in English. And the orchestra was pre-rehearsed before I got there. Believe it or not, I had a 1.5-hour rehearsal with that orchestra and chorus. It was a very moving experience. So to be in my father's town, where there, of course, hadn't been a Jew for many years, and as I said in the film, it was the one town in Poland had the greatest percentage of Jews of any other town, so it was quite interesting, to be there. There was nothing left to see other than that one stone marker commemorating that Jews had lived there in a part of the cemetery that one could hardly find that was locked, but everything was basically gone.
Thank you. And I do encourage everyone to listen to the work in its entirety. And I do believe that this was the one that we realized that I think as a student, I had the opportunity to record on. This was recorded by the American Youth Symphony.
Well, actually, there was another performance of it here. We did it with the American Youth Symphony and the Master Chorale, Los Angeles Master Chorale, and that at Royce Hall. That was wonderful to hear. As a composer, you when you're commissioned to write something, there's going to be a first performance. You never know if it's going to be a second or a third. So it's always a joyful experience to hear something again.
So next we'll be sharing a clip that you have brought to us from an honor that you received from the Jewish National Fund. And this is just such a wonderful clip, so I don't want to give anything away. So why don't we watch it, and then before we hear some of the music, we can talk about it.
Please join me in welcoming Fred Willard.
Thank you very much, Larry Miller. I am humbled. All right, thank you. It is star time at the Apollo Theater. I have been a neighbor of Charlie Fox since before I knew we were neighbors, before I knew who Charlie Fox was I knew there was a show business home next to ours, from the loud, raucous piano playing, the singing, the shouting, the glitterati coming in and out in their limousines and convertibles, throwing confetti. One day there was a knock on my door, and it was Charlie Fox. He said, "Hello, Mr. Willard, I'm Charlie Fox. I'm a songwriter. I am looking for a rhyme for the word moon." He said, "I have croon, I have soon, but I need a rhyme for moon." And he said, "What about baboon?" I said, "I wouldn't rhyme June with baboon." He said, "What about Abba Dabba honeymoon?" Debbie Reynolds had a great deal of luck with that. You would not make a good songwriter. He said, "But come over to my house Saturday. We're having a bit of a party. Leave your inhibitions at home. It's kind of a show business crowd, cross-dressing and all, but just you'll have fun." Saturday, I went over an hour or two early and knocked on the door, and a beautiful woman opened the door. I said, "Charlie, is that you?" And she said, "No, I'm Joan. I'm Charlie's wife." And Charlie came out. He said, "Fred, you're a little early." I said, "Yes, Charlie. I've written a couple of songs I wonder if you could give me some help with." He said, "Well, let me hear one." So I sat down and played. Dun-da-dum, dun-da-dun, dun-dun, dun-dun, dun-da. He said, "Fred, that sounds very much like one of those Beatles songs." I said, "Yes, it is the same chord changes." I said, "Do you have time to hear another one?" He said, "What's the title?" I said, "Hey, Dude." And he said, "Fred, I think songwriting may not be your forte." But he invited me to a songwriters and singers showcase in West Hollywood. I went down and watched it. Charlie Fox was the host and the star. And I learned what Charlie Fox did and who he was. And he's getting the Tree of Life Award for his philanthropic work. But in my heart, I want to give him my own award for all the magical moments musically he's given to our world. The theme songs for the great TV shows, Love, American Style. I did 2 episodes of Love, American Style. By the time I turned off the set, I forgot what I'd done and what the script was about. But I remembered Love, American Style, for me and you. It stuck in my mind. Then he wrote the themes for Laverne and Shirley, Happy Days, and of course, Love Boat. And he wrote the song Barry Manilow's Beginning to Take Another Chance Again. I think I'm getting that title right. I do know Barry Manilow slightly, and I'm not sure I want to know what he was willing to take another chance to do, let alone again. Not to mention Killing Me Softly with his song. It seems like a classic that should have been written 100 years ago, but it was Charlie Fox. Not to mention the score for about 100 films, Barbarella, 9 to 5, Goodbye Columbus, Strange Brew, National Lampoon, European Vacation. And I'm sorry, Charlie, the list you sent me with your Christmas letter, I've misplaced it. Send it again this Christmas in case I have to introduce you. I'd like to read off all 100. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome and ask to come up my neighbor, I hope my good friend, and my songwriting hero, Mr. Charlie Fox. Oh, right there.
But I'm going to back record just going in. So, well, I'm very honored, I'm very touched, and I'm very proud to receive this Tree of Life Award from the Jewish National Fund. I would say I can't tell you how much it means to me, but I'm going to tell you how much it means to me. My mother, well, first of all, before I even say that, I grew up in an apartment in the Bronx, and, wow. We should have a separate meeting later about the Bronx. In our apartment, the kitchen table, the centerpiece of our kitchen table with my growing up was a little blue box, the Jewish National Fund. That was part of our lives. And what the box went for when it was filled up to help Israel was part of our lives. My next door neighbor in the Bronx, they were the first people who had a television set, and in the apartment house. Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock, some of you may remember, was Milton Berle. Well, they were the first people who had the television, and they opened up their apartment house to anyone who wanted to come in and watch Uncle Milty. But if you did, you first had to pass the little boy who shook a little blue box, and if you didn't put money into the push key, you didn't get to see Uncle Milty. But everyone did.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop it right there. That clip, while there's no music in that direct clip, and we'll hear some music in a moment, it just tells us so much about who you are and the roots of where you come from, both musically and as a Jew. And so with that, the next work, Hineni, as the final work that was performed here, I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about that and how that connected to your Jewishness, and your deep connection to Israel.
Am I still connected? Because I only see the screen.
Oh yeah, we hear you well.
You do? Okay. First
yeah,
let me just say about Fred Willard. He was the funniest man I ever knew. He's the funniest man in America. He was literally across the street. Maybe you could drive out from our house into his house, and with his wonderful wife Mary, we lost him. But and I had no idea that he was going to be there presenting that to me. Somehow they got around me, so it was as much of a surprise to me as it all was to the people watching right now. And of course, he was off the wall and so funny. So the piece, I guess you're going to play now with the LA Children's Choir, all 50 of them, although the way that's shot, you barely know that. The way the camera operator was moving around. It was a piece called Hineni, Here I Am. Uri Hersher asked me to write a piece. Actually, Uri, he was head of the Skirball, as you know. He started the Skirball, and he was the man who ran it until I think just this year. Anyway, that was his genius to do that. They were starting a new building, and he had a film to go, and I was on vacation, actually. I got a musical emergency phone call. And of all the phone calls I've had, I've never had a musical emergency. Anyway, he asked me if I would do the film for this, and I said, of course. So even while I was there, I never write the words. have the great pleasure of working with some of the greatest lyricists, Norma Gimble, Hal David, Paul Williams, Sammy Kahn. I'm working now with Alain Boublil, who wrote Les Miserables. But in this case, I was spirited enough to get up and write some words down. And I'd always thought I would write a piece based on the word Hineni. And what the Skirball is all about is to welcome people of all faiths, but to introduce the backgrounds of different faiths, and of course especially the Jewish faith. But it's a very welcoming place, and that was the idea of the film. A lot of children in it. So I came up with the words with myself, which I never do. But I guess inspiration hit me. And so it's a very uplifting piece about welcoming people into the Skirball, into a peaceful surrounding. I guess that's about it. So we recorded with the American Youth Symphony, and which is a wonderful orchestra, and the LA Children's Choir, and of course we didn't have the symphony. I played the piano, but we have the whole choir. If you want to show that a bit now.
Mm-hmm.
My dear friend Hal Linden, this is Hineni.
To this land Hineni, build me a sanctuary so that I may dwell among you. And so teach your children with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might.
To meet, celebrate, educate, appreciate. We live to dream and create. Just imagine, motivate.
And you shall treat the stranger who resides in your midst exactly like the citizen, because you were a stranger in the land of Egypt. And you know the heart of the stranger.
Imagine, we'll inquire. On our journey, we'll inspire. We will welcome and we'll listen. We will learn and we'll respond. Come together, all together, we can build a great new day. Come together, all together, we can build a great new day. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la.
And Jacob had a dream. A stairway was set on the ground, and its top reached up into the sky, and messages of God were going up and down on it. And God said to him, all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you and your descendants. And Jacob awoke and said, Manora hamakom hazeh. How awe-inspiring is this place. This is none other than the abode of God. This is the gateway to heaven.
Hineni, 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 here we are. Come together, all together, we can build a great new day. Come together, all together, we can build a great new day.
You have been told what is good, only to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God, to love your neighbor as yourself.
Together, all together, we can build a great new day. Come together, all together, we can build a great new day. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la.
Lech lecha, go forth, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you. Bahayei haracha, and you in turn shall be a blessing to all the families of the earth.
Here we are, we are here. We are here for one, for all. Raise your hand and raise your voice. It's a day and let's rejoice. Here we are, we are here. We are here for one, for all. Raise your hand and raise your voice. Raise the day and let's rejoice. Come to this land and to build it hand in hand. Our doors are open, our doors are wide. Come everyone, see what's inside. We'll enrich and we'll enlighten. Tell the story of a people. We'll remember and we will then thank all those who came before. Hineni, 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 here I am. Hineni, 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 we are here. We'll imagine, we'll inquire. On our journey, we'll inspire. We will welcome and we'll listen. We will learn and we'll respond. Hineni, 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 I am here. Hineni, 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 we are here. Hineni, 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 here we are. Hineni, 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 we are
Hineni.
You know, I always think the camera operator should be arrested for standing behind a camera.
What a fun work, and what a way to also bring in a children's choir and expand that repertoire. That I mean, a place where there's certainly room for more Jewish children's repertoire.
Oh,
We're gonna go.
they're wonderful. They also sang with us when we did the piece that we did in Poland. When we did it at Royce Hall. They're wonderful.
So the next work that we're going to see is a bit different, but also shows a really interesting part of your compositional output, and that's the fantasy homage Chopin. And so I was wondering if you could set up for us how this connects to you both musically, but your background and your own studies.
Well, so first of all, when I was in Poland in 2009, when we did that other piece, 100 Voices, the man who was the head of the opera and also the Minister of Culture asked me, he said, the following year is the 200th anniversary of the birthday of Chopin, and asked me if I would write a piece honoring Chopin. Of course, didn't take me long to say, of course I would. So this was the year 2010, and it was the 30th anniversary of the fall of communism, and also of this was in the Lech Walesa, was the start of the fall of communism, and this was in the area of the shipyards where it all started, and there was a huge concert. We had 22,000 people all standing for the whole concert. And there was a wonderful Polish pianist that they asked me to write the piece for with a chamber orchestra, and his name is Leszek Mocter. And I had long promised a piece to my good friend Eddie Daniels, the fantastic clarinetist, who's both a great jazz and clarinet classical pianist. So I said I would like to do a piece for both of them, clarinet and piano, with the orchestra. And so this is in Gdańsk, Poland. There's an outdoor concert, as I say, in the shipyards where Solidarity started. It was the beginning of the Solidarity movement. It was the 30th anniversary of it. Lech Walesa was there. And we did this concert, and I think you may play a portion of it.
Yep, we're going to hear just the last portion, as this is a much bigger work. But once again, I'll encourage everyone to go out and listen to the full piece. So many colors and just such a rich, amazing orchestration.
Well, it's interesting. We started near the end, actually, and it's a piece I wrote in homage to Chopin. So there are moments, especially at the beginning, that are more Chopin. It's all my music, but Chopin-esque in terms of little piano things, and then it develops into where it starts here. See, it's like you came in the middle of the movie, but it sort of ended in the same way. And anyway, it was a great thrill for me doing this. We had, as I said, we had 22,000 people, two fantastic soloists, and a wonderful orchestra, the Kusa Orchestra. And it was wonderful to be part of. I was very honored to write a piece honoring Chopin in Poland.
So the next work that we're going to be hearing is from The Chosen. Now, the name Chaim Potok is one that really, really resonates through the whole Jewish world. And The Chosen, similarly, one of his masterworks. I was wondering if you could tell us how you came to really build this musical and put together this concertized version of it.
So this was a work that I worked on with Chaim, and Hal David wrote the lyrics. We worked on it for, a long time, as you can imagine, doing a full musical. But Chaim became a dear friend, and he used to come out to work he lived in Philadelphia, and we'd work at my house, the three of us, with Hal and myself, and for about a week. Anyway, this was a production that we did only one night performance, and it was as a benefit for the Saf Harofeh Hospital in Tel Aviv. And a lot of people came out from Israel. Menachem Begin's daughter was there, among other people and dignitaries. It was a lovely experience, and we only did it the one time, but I think we had a small orchestra, maybe a 12 or 13 piece orchestra, and you'll hear a little bit. And of course, it's a work. Then when I started to work on Chaim, I knew all of Chaim's books, and this was my favorite of all his books. So it was a joyous time to work on it and to work together, and with my dear friend Hal David. So there are a few songs I think we talked about. I don't know which one you're going to play, but
this first one is "Dear Lord."
Okay, so this is the Rebbe. This is the Rebbe's song, speaking to God.
I wish just once, though, my father and I could have a real conversation.
Dear Lord, here I am here to sing your praises. Dear Lord, here I am here to worship you. Dear Lord, there you are in all your glory. I am here to tell your story. I am here to worship you. All I know is what you let me know. All I see is what you let me see. All I feel is what you let me feel. All I am is what you let me be. Dear Lord, here I am here to sing your praises. Dear Lord, here I am here to worship you. Dear Lord, there you are in all your glory. I am here to tell your story. I am here to worship you.
Now, I believe when I heard that one the first time, I think my question to you was that a pre-existing like Hasidic song or something of that kind? And I'll ask it again. Was that a pre-existing song? Because it sounds so familiar.
I think that's kind of my role, to try to make things sound
Yeah.
familiar. No, I'll be honest with you. You know the expression "a drunk song." Sometimes people call out a drunk song. It was not existing. No, I have no drunk songs in my life. I approach everything for the moment, and the hope is to write something that people might feel it's an old friend, you know, that they take with them. So if you felt that, I feel good about that.
Oh, certainly. I mean, it just, it does take me to like those, like, I can hear myself, I can see myself in a synagogue, or I can see myself at a tish or something like that. So it really is, it's amazing how the music can transport you that way. So I think we have time for one more clip from this before we start going into a Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to, let me go ahead and get there. I believe this is just after the founding of the State of Israel, where the boys will finally be able to meet each other, where I forgive me for not knowing the exact title of this one, but the song of both fathers singing.
Okay.
So why don't we?
This is it's a very important moment in the book, and a very important moment in the show, because Israel has now become a state, and the Hasidic father, true to form, didn't want to see a state of Israel because, for those of you I'm sure know, in Mea Shearim, for example, in Jerusalem, which is the most holy place in the holy believers in Jerusalem, I should say. It's not about bringing, establishing the land of Israel without the Messiah. They're waiting for the Messiah to come. And so one boy's father, the rabbi you just saw, his point of view is we should wait as long as it takes to have a state of Israel. And the other boy's father, Danny, who's the more secular of the two, he was helpful in getting to the establishment of Israel. And he said, we can wait no longer. We must have a homeland. So this is the dilemma of this song. And actually, it's the heart of the show. It really is. It's about conservatism versus the real world. And I think you'll see that in the song. And it's very passionate. I think you'll see that.
Wonderful. And while we're listening, I would encourage anyone who has a question for Charles Fox, please, now is the time. Please put it in the chat. Thank you.
Later that year, news came that the war had ended. News also came of the terrible atrocities that had been done to Jews across Europe. The United Nations focused on creating a possible homeland for the Jews, and so did mine and Danny's fathers.
Someday it is said the Messiah will come. How long must we wait? How long must we wait? No more, no more, no more, no more. Someday we will march to the beat of his drum. How long must we wait? How long must we wait? No more, no more, no more, no more. How long must we wait by the side of the river for the waters to part, no longer to roam? How long must we wait for the Lord to deliver back home. Someday it is said the Messiah will come. How long must we wait? How long must we wait? As long as it takes. As long as it takes. Someday we will march to the beat of his drum. How long must we wait? How long must we wait? As long as it takes. As long as it takes. How long must we wait by the side of the river for the waters to part, no longer to roam? How long must we wait for the Lord to deliver on the promise he made to bring us back home? No more, no more, no more. We've waited so long. As long as it takes. As long as it takes. How long must we wait by the side of the river for the waters to part, no longer to roam? How long? As long as it takes. By the side. As long as it takes. As long as it takes. As long as it
So that's the basic
Spectacular
concept,
musical
you know, of The Chosen. And as I started to mention before about Meir Shadim, there's a big sign on the wall that's hand painted, as I recall, that says, when I was very struck by it, when I first saw Zionism and Judaism are diametrically opposed. It's hard for someone of a more modern thinking generation to understand that, but that's the basic conflict in that show. And anyway, I was always proud of that, the work that I did with Hal. We both were proud of it. And actually we're speaking to the UCLA drama department, perhaps doing it there. So we'll see if that happens.
And with that, I want to go ahead and open it up to questions. And a number of questions have come into the chat, but the one I want to ask the most, it happens to be the first one here. What Jewish music would you like to write in the future?
What Jewish
What do we
music?
get to look forward to? This is from Mark Kligman, of course.
Well, Mark, I wish I had an answer for that. I don't at the moment. I have a lot of thoughts in mind for future, but that hasn't come across yet. But it will. It will, because I find it very hard to say no when anyone asks me to write something that can bring me into my inner self, you know, and I'm sure that will happen.
Yeah, it is worth mentioning that we have barely scratched the surface, and anyone that doesn't know your wider catalog, go on that website. I mean, there's a wonderful section of liturgical works, so it's worth looking. Noreen Green writes, your compositional style crosses many genres. What is your favorite style?
I haven't yet discovered which my favorite is among all of that. I enjoy going back and forth. If I told you what I'm working on right now, Well, two things.
Oh, please do.
So first of all, I have two new musicals. One I just completed with Alain Boublil, who wrote the show called Les Miserables. We have a wonderful collaboration.
Heard of it.
He also wrote Miss Saigon, and we were very excited about that. We just completed this work. And then just before the pandemic, well, a couple of years ago anyway, I did some concerts. Most people wouldn't know that I started my music career in playing Latin music. Well, you mentioned it earlier. And after 50 years, I decided I wanted to go back and do another Latin album, which I had made some in the past. I really only just felt like playing the piano again in a Latin band, and no one was calling me. So I had a friend in Cuba, have a very dear friend, who's a wonderful composer, we're a celebrated composer there. And he mentioned that I wanted to do this to some of the chamber I forgot it's some part of the government. And before I know it, I had a phone call and asked me if I wanted to do some concerts in Havana at the Opera House. So I did, and I did several concerts with a big Latin band, all my own songs, mostly in Spanish, which I don't even speak, but I have a good feel for the music. And that actually is being Danny Gold, who I mentioned, who did 100 Voices, is making a documentary film about that. And so I'm very excited about that. He brought a crew and filmed the whole thing. And actually next week, 2 weeks, we're going to Paris. As you mentioned, I studied in Paris with Nadia Boulanger. And in the summers we spent in the Palace Fontainebleau, the Conservatoire. And in winters I was with Mademoiselle Boulanger. And so they're coming back to film me in the footsteps I had in my youth in the places, and it will be part of the film. So those are quite different things, and I never know what the future is going to hold.
Oh, fantastic. There's a question about your time with Nadia Boulanger and discussions about your Jewishness with her. I was wondering, did that ever happen?
No, I can't say that it did. Nadia Boulanger was an extraordinary woman, extraordinary musician. Mm-hmm. I loved her dearly. I love her dearly to this day. She's a part of my life for my whole life. She herself was Catholic, and you may know that her sister died who was a wonderful composer, was the first woman to win the Prix de Rome, the first prize. Nadia Boulanger won the second prize as a composer. And Boulanger had a mass for a great mass for her sister every year. And every year, when I was there, she was tearful as the day she had probably just died. And actually, it was her sister who supposedly said to Nadia Boulanger, teach young people, carry on by teaching, rather than and Nadia Boulanger basically stopped composing. But you may, you probably know, and most people know Nadia Boulanger, but it started with Aaron Copland 40 years before me, and generations of composers from around the world came to study with her. And she was extraordinary. And some people think that that she tried to mold them in some sort of an image. It is absolutely false. She worked with everyone exactly in their own ability. And she was extraordinary with her knowledge of music, with her joy of music. She was the funniest person I ever knew. I mean, we'd laugh sometimes. She would say funny. She would sometimes talk about how much she appreciated her housekeeper and how much she attentive to us, every little speck of detail of dust. And she would make these funny little noises, while she was dusting something inside something. So it was a lot of laughs too. And sometimes if I did something she didn't like, I used to sit right next to her. She'd poke me like this and I'd fall right on the floor. But I'd laugh also. But no, religion was not part of it. She was very spiritual herself. Of course, the music of, the music of Bach and And Beethoven was her religion, you know. Mozart, of course, and Stravinsky.
Did she ask
So
you to
we're
set
limited
something
on.
in Latin?
Sorry?
Did she ask you to set something in Latin?
No, she did not. No. But, you know, with her, I sang many times the Ferrari Requiem with her and chorale of Bach. And, you know, Ferrari was her teacher. Her teacher. One time
Amazing.
she said she was having dinner at, oh, it's extraordinary legacy. She was having dinner at Ferrari's house. And after dinner, Ferrari excused himself. He was the head of the conservatoire at that time when she was a student. And her classmate was Ravel, you know, and the best friend was Stravinsky. So
It's an amazing musical circle.
Yeah, but she said at the end of dinner, Ferrari said, I have to excuse myself and write down the music I've been composing over dinner.
So we are running out of time. So the one thing I do want to say, you said your most recent project, the one that we should be looking for, is the documentary coming out soon. Where might we be able to find it? How could we find out news about it when it is released? That all the fun stuff for all of us fans.
Well, they're still shooting, but they're expecting to release it at the end of March, maybe at the beginning of April. So we'll see. We'll see if that holds true to form.
Wonderful.
And hopefully it might be, you might hear about it through normal media and stuff like that.
Fantastic. Well, on behalf of everybody, on behalf of the Lowell Milken Center for Music of American Jewish Experience, UCLA Herb Alpert School of Music, my colleagues, and a thank you, and on behalf of and to my colleagues Mark Kligman and Beth Kramer. This has just been a wonderful, wonderful evening with you, and it's exciting for us to get to see another side of your compositional output. So thank you so much, Charles.
Thank you. I must say also that I had the pleasure and honor of teaching at UCLA in composition for about 5 years. And it's a fantastic school with great opportunities. And so I thank you for asking me and for being part of this. And it's been a very nice hour for me too. Thank you all.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and stop the